Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're comparing two of the most loved web design tools out there. And yes, we're talking about Webflow versus the new contender, Framer. We are going to be checking out some of the following categories that might be written on screen here: level of difficulty, ease of use, integration, communities, etc. And we're going to come to a final conclusion as to which one is the better choice for you. So let the battle begin. So the first one is of course Webflow. Now let's begin with ease of use or level of difficulty. It's super easy to start a Webflow project, it's free of cost, and of recently they've started to provide various templates that you can just start off from, so it becomes much easier because of these templates. For this example, I'm going to use the higher up small business website. And even though you start up quickly with a nice ready-made template, if someone is new to this, they will not know what to do because everything here is in terms of a web developer or a web designer's terms. Things like typography, position, size, spacing, including margins and padding are terms that are more used to in this kind of setting. When you're starting off, you don't get a lot of useful tutorials. There's definitely a slight learning curve here, especially when it comes to using certain things like components. For example, this right here is sort of a component, and unless you know that you have to press this little edit icon, you cannot edit this component. And then there are things like these sub components of sorts where you have to change element settings individually, like placeholder, autofocus, etc. So for someone who has never visited a web development or design no code tool like Webflow, it'll be tricky for them to start off. Another thing that's tricky is the jargon being used here. Jargons like div tags, IDs, visibility, custom attributes. These are words and jargons that a normal user will not know at all. Apart from that, if we reach the settings of the project, everything now becomes much easier. They've categorized everything in a neat little way. So we have general, members, publishing, plans, bills, SEO, forms. Everything that you need and require is available here, and it's easy to understand. You're good to go if you're a beginner or if you're a non-designer or developer. I'm going to give Webflow a 2.5 out of 5 stars when it comes to ease of use and understanding for a starting person. Now let's come to Framer for web. Earlier it used to be a UI design tool, but they've seamlessly converted it into a website design tool. Now coming into Framer, it's also pretty simple and easy if you want to create a new website and it starts a website for you. They also give you all these basic pages, sections, and navigation elements, so you can just add a certain page if you like. So much like Webflow, this also has that ease of use at the beginning that you can just pick up a template and get started. Unfortunate thing is when you start with a new file, it does not give you a lot of UI kits or different designs that you can choose from. It's pretty basic. One thing I really like about Framer on top of a tool like Webflow is the fact that they've arranged desktop, tablet, and mobile right next to each other, especially if you're choosing a template like this. This allows people to understand the concept that this website will look like this on a tablet, on a phone, on a desktop. So for a beginner, it's just easier to understand something like this. Apart from this, when I'm editing a text, a similar problem comes into play when it comes to the complexity of the layout on the right. As you can see on the right, we have size, effects, styles, text. Some terms are good for designers, but non-designers will have a tough time understanding this as well. One thing that Framer wins over Webflow is text. That under text, there's content, there's font, there's weight, the color, shadow. Everything is slightly more easier to understand and quicker to grasp as a beginner. Now in Framer, components are also slightly complex. For example, we have this button component here. If I double click, we get to this page where this component is stored. However, something better here is that you can see the variant as an individual element and you can quickly jump into editing, title, placeholder, text area as well. Another cool thing is that we can attach other instances and variations of this button to use for animations, for different pages, etc. So much better variation of what Webflow does with their own components. One thing I like about Framer is that a lot of elements are actually ready-made. So the things that you had to design or develop from scratch on Webflow, you can quickly do it from its ready-made elements that they've created. Things like icons, interactions, patterns, social media, everything is available. So you just need to drag and drop. I like the drag and drop model of Framer over Webflow any day. Now when it comes to the settings of the project, this is where things get trickier. Webflow does this slightly better, where they have categorized everything in a more understanding, jargon-free way. Here, as you can see, everything is somewhat more jargon-oriented. For example, we have redirects. As a non-web designer, I don't know what a redirect is. There are too many options under each category, which makes it slightly trickier and increases cognitive load, if you get what I mean. Individual page settings are nicer than Webflow, however, have fewer options when it comes to what you can edit and what you can change or switch around. There is only one page image. So if you want a certain image to be displayed on Facebook and one to be displayed on Google, it will be very difficult to do. You'll probably have to use custom code for that. So the fact that you have to use custom code for a lot of other things just eradicates the ease of use for Framer a little bit as well. To Framer, I will give 3.5 stars out of 5 for its general ease of use, but difficulty when setting up your pages and publishing. Features are generally super important when coming to designing a full-fledged website, especially if you're designing for someone else's or your own business. You need everything in one place. Webflow does take the cake in these areas, and here is why. Things like login, logout flow, inbuilt form blocks, file upload systems, reCAPTCHA, navbar, tabs, social, as well as stuff like collection lists and rich tech. These make Webflow just miles ahead from everything else. Apart from that, you can control everything from this one designer page. You don't have to navigate anywhere else. You can add user accounts, access groups. You can add an e-commerce website as well if you've paid for it. You can easily manage your assets here and then go deep inside the asset lists to create subfolders, etc. They've even added things like compression, so you can convert images and assets into WebP format, which is really important to improve your website performance. Apart from that, they even allow you to design your own welcome emails, logout emails, invitation emails, password changed emails. So everything is already inbuilt. You're not having to utilize a third-party resource for that. They also have something called audit. So every time your website has errors or issues or things that can harm your presence or SEO, it is all present here. You can quickly just see where you are going wrong. It takes you to that element and you get to fix what is wrong with that element. When it comes to the dashboard and settings as well, you get a lot of things like plans and billing, SEO, which is really important. You can also manage different libraries. So if you've imported a certain UI kit or design system, you can have it here as well and then manage them as well. A rather easy to use Google font integration along with Adobe font integration. Again, feature rich as can be. Here, I am going to have to give Webflow 4.5 stars out of 5 just for the fact that it includes so many things that most web builders out there don't have today. Ooh, now let's come to Framer. And this is where Framer starts to lag for me. As you can see, it provides a lot of features inbuilt. For example, you have your standard CMS where you can even add a blog or import CSV, which is a nice touch. As well as inside insert, you have a lot of third-party support, things like Lottie, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. So if you're someone who's starting a blog or you're trying to create a page for your content, YouTube content or whatever, you are in good hands when it comes to Framer. However, when it comes to developing a full-fledged website for a business, that is where things start to lag. For example, did you know Framer does not support inbuilt forms? It does not have a form structure. Instead, you have to get FormSpark, HubSpot, MailChimp, Typeform. You get to integrate these services. However, as you know, most of these services are paid, and it sucks that Framer does not include a free form tool or utility kit inside their platform. I mean, don't get me wrong, these elements are super well designed and well built. However, for someone who's just starting off, it can get tedious to begin with something like this. I really like the fact that they've included code components and code overrides, which can be important for someone who's more of an advanced user. The site settings, as I said again, is slightly less flexible than Webflow. However, I like the fact that there is a staging and version platform, so you can go back and forth with versions, test out new versions of your website, so it becomes easier for a non-developer to do that. Apart from that, there is nothing really special when it comes to the feature set. Everything is focused more towards the visual standpoint. So if you want to create a visually beautiful website, slightly more easily, it's definitely a good choice. For the lack of features and the problems and issues I had when building websites for business, I'll have to give this a low 3 out of 5. Again, still not very low, but it does go down in my list just because of the lack of features. Now let's come to the Figma integration. Everyone these days is using Figma, so it becomes essential that a good integration is created with Figma. Now, when it comes to Webflow, Figma has a Figma to Webflow converter, and it's actually pretty simple to use. I've created a full tutorial on this as well. If you want to check it out later, where you can essentially create a website with any given UI kit, even a Webflow ready UI kit, and that gets essentially converted into a Webflow website. However, I found a few issues because it wasn't a direct conversion. There were some issues with the responsiveness of the website, along with lack of features with the actual plugin itself. It just allows you to convert something quicker, still have to edit and do all that good stuff inside Webflow. So here I will have to give Webflow a low 3 out of 5. Hopefully they'll improve it since it's still in its beta stages, in my opinion. Now this is where Framer wins, takes the cake. Figma to Framer has been there for years now, so it's not a surprise that they get it or do it better. Figma to Framer is as easy as clicking a button. It allows you to essentially just copy everything on Figma, and you can just paste it like you were pasting a piece of text into Framer. And the best part is it's actually super accurate. It does not have any issues when converting. There is no issue with the responsiveness or issues with colors, text, type, any. However, this plugin is still not 100% perfect. This plugin can be confusing for someone who's getting started because it isn't a converter, it's a copy and paste machine of sorts. Over that, there is no option for adding interactivity or importing any kind of prototyping features, even though this tool has been there for more than a year easily. Good winner. I don't need many other features. So 4 out of 5 for Framer. Wow, that's a weird sentence. Now let's come to my favorite portion of this video by far. Interactions and animation. Even though it is easy to add interactions on both platforms, Webflow does have some issues for beginners especially. If you're a beginner, you don't know what this lightning icon on top means. However, once you hover over it, it's pretty clear. Now, I like the fact that you can create multiple triggers and then assign elements to it rather than doing it other way around. I prefer this method because then you can assign the same interaction to multiple elements with ease. For example, I want to add a hover animation to this image. I can quickly just under elements trigger, add the plus icon, and then it's easy without any jargon. They ask you for mouse hover, and here on hover, it asks you for an action. So you can make it fade, you can make it slide, you can make it pop, jiggle, pulse, whatever you like. Another good thing is that you can quickly preview the animation without having to preview the entire website. I also like the flexibility of hover in and hover out at the same section, as well as allows you to disable it on tablet, phone, or desktop. So you can have separate animations for a phone, separate animations for desktop, etc. What I dislike is the fact that I really can't name this trigger. It keeps on being mouse hover. I wish I could right click and then name it myself. You can even create custom timed animations and add more elements, make other elements do different things, etc. I'm going to give Webflow a solid 4.5. You might disagree on this and tell me in the comments why, but I feel Webflow's animations and triggers are the easiest to implement out of any tool. Now let's come to Framer, man. Framer is where it gets easier. Framer definitely implements an easier model, much similar to what we have in Figma. So you can just click on something, and on the right you will have elements like effects. Quickly add an effect, hover effect. For example, a hover makes the opacity change, scale change, rotation, shadow, transition. I also like that there is advanced transition, etc. curve, which is easier to access as compared to Webflow. And you can add multiple effects to the same element depending on the action you are doing. Apart from this, you can't change a lot of stuff. For example, under hover also, you are limited to all these elements: scale, opacity, rotation, etc. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is enough for most people, but if there was flexibility, more flexibility would have been such a blessing onto us. You can remove individual effects on different pages, so it's very similar to Webflow. However, unless you know something like that is possible, won't really know because there's no options for it separately. So when it comes to animations, it is certainly more beautiful looking and the implementation on some areas is easier. However, when we're comparing as close as possible, Webflow does take the cake here. Framer here is a solid 3.5 out of 5. It gets a lower point just because of the fact that there is slightly less flexibility on all the crazy aspects that you can implement on Webflow. Integrations and plugins. Now we come to an important aspect. Is your favorite tool connected to Webflow or Framer? Is your favorite payment platform, be it Stripe, Razorpay, whatever, easily integrated with this platform? Now, when it comes to Webflow, integration is not much of a challenge because everything can be imported from a custom code point of view, which almost all websites and tools offer. But apart from that, there is something called integrations under the Webflow dashboard. Here, you can integrate things like Google Optimize, Analytics, Maps, Facebook Pixel, API access. So if you have an external CMS on other platforms, you can easily import it, which again allows you to add external APIs, etc. to Webflow. So you basically have no lack of flexibility. However, for a beginner, it can be tricky to understand what a webhook is, how to connect authorized apps. But chances are, if you have an app like Zapier or Razorpay, there will be options for Webflow integrations as well. In fact, when I was connecting my websites through GoDaddy has an official integration with Webflow, which makes it easier. Not so easy when it comes to Framer, of course. Webflow does have a slight learning curve when it comes to integrations, I will agree. So in this case, I'm going to give it only a 3.5 out of 5. It could improve its integration flow, and then maybe I would have given it something like a 4.5 for sure. This is where things get interesting with Framer. If I go to Framer, if I go to the dashboard or to the site settings, now I've already shown you the elements. So a lot of integrations are already there when it comes to importing stuff. If you want a Vimeo integration, you have it. If you want a SoundCloud integration, you have it. If you want to integrate Calendly into your Framer website, well, you have it. You don't have to add custom code for it, which is where Framer does win from Webflow, because in Webflow, you have to add a lot of custom code to make things work. Now, this is where things can get tricky. I actually tried to implement an external form onto Framer a while back, and I had a very hard time with the inbuilt embed code platform. So essentially, you can embed any code you like. Of course, it's good enough, but this is not very responsive in nature. So you actually have to style a lot of elements in your custom code. So you'll have to add CSS and JavaScript to your custom code to make things more suitable for your website. The actual custom code is not very friendly with the Framer platform, let me tell you. When you publish the website, you can have a lot of errors and issues when it comes to responsiveness, height, width, styling elements, etc. when it comes to the integration of code. But it falls short when it comes to integrating a lot of stuff like, Pixel. You can add stuff like Google Analytics, you can add canonical URLs, for which of course you have to pay a certain amount as well. Of course, with custom code, you can add any other third-party integration as well. However, I would have liked it to be something like this Google Analytics option for things like Facebook Pixel, Google Performance, ad platforms, etc. That would have been so much better. Here again, there are some plus and minuses, so Framer also gets 3.5. It is great with a lot of things which you see up front, but not for a lot of things that you get at the back. So now let's come to a thing that is close to my heart, the community aspect of both these platforms, which is a stronger community. Where can you find more options, tutorials, learning material, UI kits, etc. Webflow has something for everyone. It has a learn platform called Webflow University, which I really like because it becomes more like a formal education around Webflow, not just tutorial videos. And it has lessons from the Webflow team, from the founders of Webflow, and the fact that it's so neatly organized. Select topics and lessons. So if you want to learn something like logic, granted a lot of these might be just basic text-based tutorials like this. However, a lot of them will be videos as well, which are really like highly produced, very well organized videos, which I am a super big fan of. They're not only talking about Webflow, they also talk about things like SEO, hosting and code, e-commerce platform. Now they also have something called community, where you can join a community of resilient and wonderful people, everything in one page. And of course, you have stuff like channels and certifications and different global communities, maybe a community in India or Delhi, etc. They even have something called grants. So it will offer you money if you're creating some really cool content, or if you're creating UI kits, they might pay you to keep on creating free UI kits, etc. So a really cool platform where everything is consolidated. One thing I dislike is that they really don't have a lot of options for joining Discord, WhatsApp, nothing like that really. So it does get difficult when it comes to more one-on-one casual approach. And I'm sure you'll find unofficial Reddits, Discords, Telegrams, etc. But nothing really that official. Now let's come to Framer. First of all, they are super active on Twitter and they've helped me post a lot and push a lot of my content forward so that you guys can watch it. They also have a learn platform of their own. So a separate learning platform, just like Webflow, where you have different courses, you have tutorials for each and every one of their features as well. And they have unique videos which will teach you how to make a cool new design, how to make this cool animation that they tried out. And their how-tos are super high quality and I love the whole design aesthetic of their screen recording. They also have a community aspect, so they have something called Bootcamp, something like Discord, but much more detailed in nature. You can be a part of individual topics, things like announcement, FAQs, introductions, tutorials, templates, all of the resources in this nice little bootcamp based platform. You can even ask questions here. So if you have a question, you might get it answered by one of the community members. I will give it a solid 4.5, maybe even a 5 on a good day. Okay, the last one is a sad one. Pricing. A lot of you guys are wanting to launch your official portfolio even. A single person just working all on their own and maybe not being able to afford certain things can get in. Now when it comes to Webflow, the pricing is pretty cool because of the fact that you can pay for individual websites. You don't have to pay for every website you're creating. So here, as you can see, plans and billing are very clearly displayed. There are different plans for different kinds of websites. So you can have a normal static website, or you can have a e-commerce website. So if you're looking to sell something, it's going to be slightly more expensive. But when it comes to just a normal website, a blog or whatever, it is slightly cheaper as well. You have monthly as well as yearly plans. I suggest getting the monthly plan, especially if you're in India. They've also very neatly said what they will provide, what is in beta, what is in. I like how detailed they get with this. If you're someone who just wants a webflow.io domain, well, $0 is all you need to publish a website with forms, with CMS items, so you can even create a free blog. And I really like that aspect of this. I'm going to give Webflow a 4 out of 5. Reason being, these are extremely affordable prices for what it provides. This is essentially your web presence. And of course, for an individual, $0 is also available. Now, here is where Framer starts to get slightly more confusing once again. I really like the fact that it's modeled towards different countries' currency. For Webflow, I had to see everything in dollars, even though I live in India, and they know that I live in India. I am not using VPNs or anything. You can quickly just shift between build yearly or build monthly. Again, something good that I like. The build yearly is much cheaper when compared to the build monthly, which can be a disadvantage for a lot of people who just want to try it out for a while. So definitely Framer is for those who want to maybe commit to it on a yearly basis. Otherwise, it will definitely get slightly more expensive. What I really like is that they have team accounts separate and here. So when it comes to pricing, it's trickier to find how to even get to pricing, and it's a trickier model. I'll have to give a 3 out of 5 for the payment plans and the pricings for Framer. Alright, so that was basically the main comparison. There are other things like Framer having a desktop app and Webflow doesn't. Framer does perform slightly better when you're trying to design something. Webflow lags a lot. Even on a good machine like I have a Mac here, but it still has issues when it comes to Webflow tool performance. So if you have any of your own preferences, you want to tell me why you like one tool over the other, tell me that in the comments below. I would love to have a healthy, nice discussion below, and let me know what tool you use as well. I'll see you every single week just like this. So make sure you subscribe to the channel and you click on the bell icon. Hit the like if you did. I will see you next time. Take care. God bless.